going to do this standing up.
Yes. Thank you. That you're very generous, and we really appreciate your warm welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Loach, with this film, The Old Oak, you've made a film, and many of the themes and concerns that have been part of your work, such as poverty, the housing problem, working classes that have worked in industries that have faded, it's all there, but there's something else, and it's migration. It's maybe one of the biggest challenges of the 21st century. So you thought, I'm going to make this really easy, put it all in one film.
But first of all, can I say a big thank you to the festival for inviting us, and a big thank you for showing the film and for you coming. I've been to Ghent. I think this is the third time, and it's always a real pleasure. So really appreciate your being here. Also, I have a question. Are we going to translate? Because
no.
As English, it feels really uncomfortable coming to a country and just speaking my language. It feels like an echo of colonialism, and I hate that.
But I don't think you have to worry.
Okay.
Yeah, most
okay.
of us.
Well, thank you again for the courtesy. Well, migration was never a problem when the British went to India or Africa, or the Spanish went to Latin America. It's only a problem when people that we, in British case, have occupied and colonized and exploited and sometimes enslaved, when they say, we'd like to live in your country now, a few of us. So I view the whole issue of migration in rather skeptically. But it's true. When people are suffering, when they are oppressed, when they are hungry, I think instinctively we are people who want to help. I think we are, at heart, we are good neighbours. But I think there's one other thing to say about migration, is that it is used to distract us from the real problems that we have. In our country, the health service is collapsing. It is disintegrating. It is disintegrating at present. We have a homeless problem. Our transport is in chaos. Hunger is something we never thought we would see. Hunger is a great issue. People who are vulnerable, who are poor. I think there are, I forget the figures, I think there are 500,000 children who would not eat unless people put spare cans of food into collecting boxes. This is a huge... Society is fragmenting. And then, of course, on top of that, we have the climate disaster impending. And we have wars, and we have the tragedies that we know about today. But it seems for our politicians, the biggest problem are a few thousand people trying to cross the English Channel in small boats. If we could only stop the small boats, we wouldn't have any problems. And isn't that remarkable? And I don't believe it. So I think it is a greatly exaggerated problem. We have the resources. In many instances, the colonizing powers are responsible for the problems that people face. And so I think it's an absolute obligation that when people are in need, we provide shelter and a home and a welcome. But I think the long term is that we have to examine the causes of migration, because, again, it needs a global solution to solving the problems where there's either conflict, or there is hunger, or there is a climate disaster already taking place. So, short term, make people welcome. Long term, get together and solve the problems that cause migration.
From the start, the film opens with photographs that you later learn are photographs made by Yara, the Syrian refugees. She's, of course, more than just a refugee, but she is in the film partly this. You have made several films about the British working classes, and it's present here as well, that voice. But now there was actually a double voice, so a double perspective. How did you and your frequent collaborator, Paul Laverty, do this? Did you do the research to make sure that the perspective is as...
Well, I mean, you're right. Listening is a key element to making a film, particularly these kind of films. And Paul Laverty, who wrote the script, I mean, we're not quite an old married couple, but we've worked together for 30 years, and you know, absolutely work together, and that's why I never like seeing a film by and then my name, because it certainly belongs to the two of us, and beyond that to all the great people you work with. So, and the essence, the essence of doing something like this, you've got to, if you try to make it realistic, the deal with the audience is this is as true as we can. As far as we know, having listened to people, this is how it is. You know, that's the deal. And so Paul went and just listened to people, and I joined him for some of the time. We just listened to people and heard their stories. I mean, I've known that part of England a long time. I did a documentary during the great strike that's referred to in the film in 1984, and sorry, in that in where the main location, we did a documentary there in, say, 1984, nearly 40 years ago, when it was a thriving community, and then when the miners were defeated, the pits closed. It is, as you see it now, desolate. But first of all, it was listening to them, and also listening to the Syrians, and capturing their experience, talking to people who had helped them to settle in, helped them to adjust, helped them when they were attacked. Many of the kids had been attacked by the kids at school. Some of them had been shouted at. The older ones had been shouted at. You know, occasionally somebody's veil would be snatched off their head. So they did go through it in the early days. And part of the problem was there was no preparation. So the government chose to put them in the poorest areas, out of sight, so that they didn't offend anybody. You know, they were out of sight. The press didn't write about them, and the people living there said, "Well, why us?" You know, as they say in the film, "Why us? We have nothing. Why not ask them? Why not place them in towns where the infrastructure is good? There are good schools, good hospitals." No, they put them out of sight in the poorest areas. So we listened to them. And the Syrian families in the film are the ones who live nearby. Apart from Ebla, who plays Yara, who came from the Golan Heights in what she called occupied Syria. So they brought their experience into the film, and the other people who live in the village live very nearby. So it is, again, they speak from their own experience, married to Paul's script.
You say you're you had to listen to create these characters on the screen, but you're a good listener in general, I think. When I watch your films, I need subtitles. Because the regional accents are so important, and they're so important to the people sound truthful or authentic. They use their own vocabulary. I was just wondering, is this something that is already in the script, or is there room for improvisation, making it more personal on a set?
Well, I mean, Paul's writing is very close to the dialect, but no, absolutely. It's, I mean, the language isn't set in stone, so yes, there is space for, you know, for rephrasing or putting things, or just we put little improvised bits into it as we go. The main thing is to try to create something in front of the camera that every take you do is slightly different, because the key thing is, which you can see in a film and you can't see in the theatre sometimes, you see the thought behind the eyes, and you hear the struggle to find the right words, and that's what I think is important. It's the struggle to find the words to speak, and that has to be real. You know, if it's learned off pat, if it's learned off too easily, it doesn't seem like a real conversation. You know, so it's important that it every time we do a scene, I'll find that something little to change. Maybe rephrase a question so that the answer has to be thought again. And when there's a surprise, you shoot the surprise. Like poor TJ, who his main rehearsal before the film was to get to know the dog, who's called Lola in real life. And he became great friends with Lola and started calling her Mara. And they went by the sea, and he took a walk twice a week for 3 months. So she became his dog. And poor Dave didn't know until he came round the bush what had happened. Because I thought, well, surprise is the hardest thing to act, you know. And if the surprise has to be genuine for it to work.
Yeah, poor Paul. There's actually a website, I think, where people can go, and people who are dog lovers, they check the website to see if there anything bad happens to the dog.
Oh dear.
In this case, your film will be on the to avoid list. No, I read somewhere that when you are directing and you're working with actors, that you sometimes close your eyes just to listen to what they're saying. Is that true?
Well, it's. Again, I think if you're working to create a situation which is as realistic as it can be, you have to make the place as near like normal as it can be. And film sets, I mean, I guess there's some people who work in films. I mean, you know, a film set, it can be the most hostile place, because there'll be people standing around, there'll be people looking at monitors, there'll be people checking their phones, while 2 people or 3 people are trying to make a scene really happen and really credible. So we don't have any of that. No monitors, no people looking, just standing looking. Everyone moves, you know, out of sight or away in another place. So it's just the cameraman, the boom operator, the focus puller, continuity, and me, as far as possible. And everything else out of sight. And sometimes if it's very personal, I mean, I prefer not to look, you know, I'll look away, just to preserve the privacy of the people in the film, because it should, if it's private, it should be private, in a way. And it just means people are more open. The key thing, I think, with actors is put them in a situation where they can be vulnerable. You know, and if it's like anyone in any situation, if they feel private, then they'll open up. You know, so that's the reason. It isn't an eccentricity, though it sounds it.
And well, speaking about the actors you're working with, you cast professional actors and people who are right for the part, so who maybe have never acted before, not in the same professional fashion? Is there a difference in how you have to work with them?
Not really, no. I think everyone... I think, no, you have to treat everyone the same. It's very... it's just a matter of common sense, really. You know, you know what the scene's going to be. We never rehearse because you want to hear it the first time when we're shooting. Maybe roughly work out where people will go so that you know the framing will be good, and the sound people know where to put the boom. So you practice. You say that, but it's often thought that in a way directing actors is like it's like water running downhill. If you can just tip a bucket at the top of a hill and you don't know where it's going to go. If you dig a channel, with a bit of luck, the water will go down the channel. And so you have to arrange the furniture, arrange the set, plan it so the natural thing that people do fits the way you want them to be and how you want them to react. And it gives you good frames. And so it's a bit like that, really.
And people must like it, because I saw several familiar faces from previous films that pop up in really small parts. That often happens in your films. So
once or twice, yeah, just once or twice.
If there are questions already. Usually the audience... Yeah, there's one.
Mag ik hem gooien naar jou? Wacht, hè.
Voilà.
Hello. Thank you for this film, Mr. Loach. Thank you for all the films. Compared to the ending of your last one, where the man is just trapped in a system he cannot escape from, there's much more hope in this one. So I wanted to ask you if you feel more hopeful these days than you used to, just a few years ago.
No, about the same, really. I mean, I think it's... the thing is, that you can't invent hope. You know, hope is not... it's not wishful thinking. You know, it's not crossing your fingers. To hope, I think you have to have a credible path to travel where collectively you can change things. And I think that the cause for hope in this is that, well, two things. First of all, as I said before, I think our instinct is to be good neighbours. You know, our instinct is if you're in trouble, we'll give you a hand. Yes, there's the other instinct to fear foreigners, but if we collectively can cherish that and nurture that instinct to help, then that's a cause for hope. And the other cause for hope is that people are strong. You know, collectively we are strong. Say we, I mean, ordinary working people are strong. Because the people who take the profits from others' work don't produce anything. They don't drive anything anywhere. They're not in shops selling it. They need people to exploit. The people who exploit it don't need anyone else. And in a sense, there's a balance of power there in the economic system, which people have, the people have, which those who represent corporate power don't have. And so it's a question of understanding that, of organising it, whether it's in trade unions, whether it's in political movements, whether it's in campaigns, whatever it is, organising that, joining together, and then asserting political power. I mean, it is there. There is that strength. The problem is the prevailing consciousness is to say, well, you don't have any power really. You know, we'll set up a charity if you need help. You know, we'll pass the hat round. But in terms of the class that has power, I mean, I'm using old socialist language here, but the class that has power is the working class. And it's a question of organising and getting a political program that can shift the balance of power, can take political power, and then we can begin to solve the big problems. But at the moment, while we're in the grip of an economic system that will destroy the planet if it's not controlled, because they will demand the use of fossil fuels to keep production going, or whatever their way of working is, to take one example. So I think it's fundamentalism, this. But I think if we are to change, and my God, we need it, then we have to be politically organised, and the political organisation has to be based on our strength, not an imagined weakness.
Thank you very much.
Is there already another question? It's also quite meaningful, maybe, Mr. Loach, that Yara is a character who expresses hope. She says that you have to keep on believing. She's the one that we could imagine being crushed and without hope, but she still says, no, you have to go on.
Yes, and in her photographs, she photographs things that give her, that bring out. There are images of humanity that are encouraging, what we share, really, and things that we cherish, Well, she's obviously lived through the most terrible scenes, which we just get a glimpse of in the little video message that the boy gets. But no, as a photographer, she sees what encourages her, and that's our shared humanity. And so I think that's her hope. And there's a line of the friend who calls hope obscene. And when you've been in the middle of that horrific situation, then how can you have hope? I mean, it can seem obscene. But as she says, if I lose hope, my heart will die. And I think that's true too. Yeah.
I think there was another question. Yeah, over there.
Hi, thank you for your film. I was wondering, because you clearly want to spread out this message, do you often think about the accessibility of your film? And then as a second question, I would like to ask, where would you prefer to show your film?
Where?
Yeah.
Well, here.
Yeah, but as in like a classic theater, or what kind of place?
Well, I mean, I think, but first of all, just talking about the reach of the film. I mean, a film, you simply want to find people who would like to watch it with an open mind, and a willingness to meet the people you put on screen and be involved in their story, and just come just to see a film, really, but go on the ride the film takes you on. I think I'm happy to show the film in anywhere. There is one. It's a good point in this, is that often the communities who, certainly in our country, I don't know if it's the same in yours, many people don't live close to a cinema, and certainly not close to a cinema that will take films, independent films like this. I mean, they will get the American blockbusters, A Car Journey Away, but there's many films they won't see. And for that, the distributor in Britain has a system of community screenings where people can hire the film or get access to it for a night, show it in a room above a pub, not the back room of the Old Oak, but somewhere like it, in a community centre, in a church hall, anywhere that's big enough. You can charge for it, and for, about £100, just over €100, you can rent it charge, keep the money, and use it for campaigns, for helping the hungry, help the homeless, help refugees, whatever, or just a campaign on some other issues, or to do political work or trade union work, or for whatever reason. With Daniel, we did another one called I, Daniel Blake, which began this, and we had about 700 community screenings, and that took the film to areas that would have no cinema. So it really worked, actually, and Paul and I and the cast went to quite a lot of those, and they're good meetings because maybe 80, 90, 100 people, 50, but people would just come and tell their stories and how they were similar to the stories in the film, and it was very engaging and very personal, which was a terrific experience, really.
Is that something that you can do with any type of film, or is it something the filmmaker really has to agree on to show it in the community centres?
No, I think you can do it. I mean, I think they've only done it in our films because we were really keen to find the audience. Mm-hmm. But as a model, I think it works really well, because you don't have to lose money on it. If it's 100 and something euros, you've only got to get 20 people, €5 each. You've done it.
That's a good idea. Hope somebody's listening. Was there another question, or right here in front?
Okay, maybe I stand in respect of Mr. Ken, of course. I'm a film scholar, and I teach here in Cask at the School of the Arts. And of course, Ken Loach is our usual suspect when we teach about social realism and militant cinema. I'm originally from Gaza, and I'm here as well. Thank you, Ken Loach, again for this great film. I really want to hear. There's a dilemma always in my head. Why working class understand the pain of the immigrants more than all of this intelligentsia and upper middle class, that they always side with the wrong side of history?
That's a big question.
I mean, there's a big audience as well. No?
Yes, I think it's a big question, but I think I agree with you. I think there is. I think, put it another way: if you're in trouble, don't go to the wealthy area. Go to the poor area, because they are used to helping each other. And I think it's that familiarity with being neighbours with people who will need help. And I think that's why, if you're in trouble, go to a working class area. I mean, it reaches its peak in the gated community. Don't go to the gated communities. Go to the people who are minding the gates, see where they live, and that's where you'll get help. But I think it's, I think the working class who are suffering can be distracted by the propaganda of the far right, where they're told, well, you haven't got a good job, blame the immigrants. There's a big queue at the doctors, blame the immigrants. There's not enough teachers in your school, blame the immigrants. And that's the propaganda that we have to resist. And across Europe, we can see the far right on the move. So I think these are really dangerous times, really, for that reason. But can I ask a question? Sure. You said you're from Gaza.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a terrible moment, and we know that the horrors of this last week have a long history. And while I'm sure, I just want to say things I think we can all agree with. I think we could not support or condone what happened on October the 7th. But equally, we can't condone the violence that's followed. There's been twice as many Palestinians killed that were killed on October the 7th, at least. And we know that everyone is entitled to human rights. We know everyone is entitled to the protection of international law. And we know that Palestinians have their land stolen. They have their houses destroyed. And they have a military occupation. And I think all of that is against human rights and international law. And the blockade of Gaza, which I think began, 16, 17, 18 years ago, is again against international law. It's collective punishment. But you say you're from Gaza. Do you have, can I ask, do you have family in Gaza?
Yeah. My parents, my mother, father, brother, sister, they all live in Gaza, in the center, where it's been bombarded, like as a carpet bombardment. There is no place to go, there is no place to hide, even saying to evacuate, and they're bombing the people who are evacuating. It's just unbearable. And what happened last night, which we thought that, okay, if that's the price of revenge, another 500 people in one go would be enough, but it seems no. Today there was another bombing, 27 people in Jabalia. In the afternoon there was another 30 people, all from the same families, being wiped. Just for people who are looking for their, just to say that it's enough. No, it's not okay. Yeah.
I think that's, well, surprising things happening at screenings, don't they? But it's a terrible situation, and well, I don't know. I think we just have to say, in the end, I'm going to take a risk here. Free Palestine.
It was a good risk. After this, every question seems, of course, a bit random to go back to cinema when we talk about the real world, as you just did. But I will do that anyway. This is, you've been, just like, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but you've been called a political filmmaker, you've been placed on a particular political spectrum. How, was it sometimes difficult, if you look at your career, has this caused you sometimes maybe trouble, because it's not easy to go out and make statements
yes.
at all?
It's a funny question, this. I don't mean funny comic, but I mean, I began work in the 60s, and in the 60s, it was seen as, there was a big talk about the need to be committed, artists who were committed, engaged, and it was a proud thing. I mean, people were pleased to be called that. And there was a, you think of Godard and Truffaut closing the Cannes Film Festival in support of the students and the workers who were occupying factories and having huge demonstrations. And they said, no, we are part of that movement. We will close the Cannes Film Festival. It's not a time for fancy dress and the rest. Film is more important. Cinema is more important than just escapism. Cinema is part of our social discourse. And that was very cherished, and people were applauded for it. But now the opposite is the case. And I think we've seen a real change of consciousness here. Where now directors fear that if they nail their colours to the mast, if they come openly about where they stand politically, they won't work again. And I think this is a change in that half century, 40 years. Well, nearly 60 years. 60 years, my God. That's a big change, and it can mean cinema is neutered. cinema is robbed of its teeth. Because if a film tells a story about the world we're in, you have to have a view of that world. You've got characters in the film, they earn a living. Where do they get their money from? In Hollywood, you see films of people who seem to have endless wealth, live in beautiful surroundings with spectacular clothes. Where's their money coming from? Who are they ripping off to get it? You know, the questions to ask. And I think if you try to, or if you're engaged in asking the questions that we've tried, Paul and I have tried to ask, and great writers I worked with before, then you are labelled, as you say, political. And in recent years, that's you get a lot of abuse that would never have happened 10, 20 years ago. And because I've supported a left leader in Britain, Jeremy Corbyn, who was the only decent leader of the left party we've ever had. He was politically assassinated, we said, and if you were seen as a supporter, then you were abused, and the abuse was you were called a racist and anti-Jewish people, which of course is not true, and many Jewish people supported Jeremy Corbyn and still do, and are very active and vocal in his support, and I'm sure it's the same here. Or you have equivalents. But yes, you get abuse. But in the end, they're not going to win. You know, they're not going to win. So I think we just have to try to tell the truth as best we can. We get it wrong sometimes. Try to tell the truth. Try to make films that touch people. Try to be part of a struggle, the struggle. And not back down, really. And I hope you think that's okay, and I hope you do the same. Thanks.
Well, you've been quoted in the press that this would be your final film. Is that still true? Because sometimes people change their minds.
Well, yeah, I mean, I said it first. We were doing a film called Jimmy's Hall, and it was in Ireland, and we were filming in a bog, and I put my foot in and couldn't get it out, and my shoe stayed in the bog, and I thought, well, mid-70s, there comes a point when you're too old to lose your shoe in an Irish bog, making a film. So rather rashly I said it, and somebody got picked up, and it passed into legend. And since then, I've had to keep denying it. But I think, I mean, that was about what over 10 years ago. So I think there does come a point. You just have to accept the reality of age, really. And so I can't see getting around. It's like an old racehorse being whipped to jump over the fences in a race course, you know. So I can't see it again. But you never know. Never say never.
But is there in maybe the UK or in Europe someone or maybe a collective of filmmakers that you look at and think, well, maybe they are the future. They are people. Do you know of any directors that share maybe your political views or your engagement in general?
Well, I mean, there are lots of talented young directors and middle-aged directors as well. And I think this is often forgotten that, I mean, when you're, because I noticed that film institutes will often give money to first-time directors. I mean, when you're a first-time director, you're learning the craft. When you've done it for 10, 15 years, you've got a bit of a clue how to do it. And it's often the second, third, or other way a director needs support. And particularly in the industry now, because what happens is, well, it may not be the same in Belgium and France and Europe, but in Britain, we are so dominated by the American cinema. there are very few independent British films that get a chance. And so good directors give up on cinema and they go and they work for the Americans, or they do the streamers or Netflix or Amazon or Disney or whatever. And they're in a straitjacket, absolute straitjacket. You know, but when you get to 40 plus or something, you'll have a family, you've got to earn a living, and they're doing work that their talents are much bigger than the work they're doing. And they have no independence. And I think that there are so many good people there, fine craftsmen, make brilliant films. They know the technique. And they're the ones, I think, who really need a chance. And I know there are many of those.
Is there another question from the audience? Because there's still our box.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for your very necessary film. I wanted to ask two questions. First, about the reach of your film. Do you plan to use your influence to show this movie to politicians? Maybe have debates on media to really raise the issue? Or are you like the characters of your movies, expecting nothing from the politicians and just you made this movie to raise hope and allowing people to have hope?
Well, I think that's a good way of putting that question, because I think when you look at and again, I mean, it's difficult for me not just to speak about my country, but I don't know how you're placed here, but the two main parties we have, they know this. They know exactly what is going on. They know they have abandoned people because they are the ones who refuse to invest. They know that some of them represent these people in Parliament, and they refuse to do anything. I mean, Blair was a case in point, Tony Blair. Tony Blair, Labour Prime Minister. He was from a constituency like this. He represented them in Parliament. He had the power to use public money, our money, to invest in green technology, progressive industries with good jobs, apprenticeships for young people, pensions when you're old, all that, did nothing. His politics was the market will solve it. Well, the market plainly didn't solve it. The market won't solve problems unless there's money to be made. And that's the fundamental flaw. So, yes, we can show it to them. We showed the film called I, Daniel Blake, which was about, a man who was too ill to work but was told he had to. Otherwise, he got no money to support himself. They knew it, but when it was shown to the minister, he stood up in our parliament and he said, well, that's just fiction. And he knew that was a lie. And the people sitting opposite will do nothing, and they know that's a lie. But they will do nothing. They've said as much in words of one syllable. One of the leading members of our party of the left, supposedly of the left, has said the Labour Party, that's meant to be the Workers' Party, the Labour Party is the party of business, not the party of people on benefits. I find that shocking. I find that shocking because it is business, the demand for profit at all costs, that drives people into precarious work, drives people into hunger. But that's the two parties we have. So there's no point in showing it to them. Happy to show it to them, but they are irrelevant. We do show it to trade unions, we show it, to communities, to campaigns, where people can get organised and are organising, because they understand it. You know, but it's a good question.
I will try. Okay, sorry. Second questions. regarding the characters in your movie, the regulars in the bar who are very hostile towards foreigners, what is your point of view about these characters? Do you understand because they have struggled, or do you think they can in the end accept the progress in the community? How do you see these characters? Because I think they will always exist everywhere
Well, I think they're a process. I think it's a process of making people of the far right. You know, I mean, it's when the villages were strong, there was no hint of racism. They welcomed people from abroad. There were one or two instances in this very village where we shot, and I forget where they were from, but there were refugees. I think they'd been refugees, Asian refugees from a country in Africa, Uganda, and they were welcomed because the people were strong. They had a viable community, and generosity is strength to spare. When you're strong, you will be generous. When you're weak and you're frightened, then you close up, keep away. So part of the reason to create a viable society is that then we are generous because we are strong. But when we are weak, that's when the far right strikes. You know, and we have our press, almost all our press. They will run stories of refugees being given a house when a British family is without one, to make people jealous. Or someone who needs financial support because they're vulnerable or in some way been ill or disabled or whatever, they will have they'll be shown on holiday in Spain, on a cheap holiday, and it'll be, here they are having a holiday on your money. You know, I don't know if you get these stories. We get them all the time. And then the BBC, you know, the model, meant to be the model of independence, will say, let's do a serious problem about the benefit system supporting people who will not work. You know? And so it's the whole idea is transposed from prejudice into a serious issue to discuss. And that's how the prejudice and the bigotry spreads. And it's very subtle, but it's insidious, you know. And yeah, talk about this a long time, but they take it because they know. Well, this is the heart of it. They know if the working class is divided, it's weak. The working class, the best way to keep their power is to get the working class fighting each other, and that's their trick. You know, that's their trick. Develop racism, because then they'll fight amongst themselves. And as the TJ says in the film, they'll look down, they won't look up when they need to find why they are poor. There's an old quotation, and I forget where it comes from, but it's a priest. It was a priest, I think, from early in the 20th century, who said, when I give food to the poor, they call me a saint. When I ask why the poor have no food, they call me a communist. And I think that's very true.
It's really nice. Something completely different. I wanted to ask you about the music in your films, because this is a film festival where we pay a lot of attention to soundtracks. And you've worked for quite some time with the composer for your film. Could you tell us something about how you think of the relationship between music and the films that you make?
Yes, I mean, I think you have to earn the music, really. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting question. I mean, music traditionally, it can be used to put emotion in a scene that doesn't have it, or excitement in a sequence that doesn't have it. And I think that's cheating, really. I think you have to generate it in the film. And we found that what music can do, one thing, for example, is to take something between just 2 or 3 people. I mean, like in this story, something between 2 or 3 people. And then the music can suggest that this may be just a small story about a few people, but actually it has a wider significance. You know, it's universal. It isn't limited. The importance of it is not limited just to this handful of people, but it has a universal application, or it is universal. Things like that. And I mean, in the last 3 films, we've used it very sparingly. And for George Fenton, who's a wonderful musician and a great comrade and a great friend, and we've worked together again for 30 years, but the less music you have, the more difficult it is to compose, because if the audience is used to music, you know, all across the whole film, and it's like an opera, well, you can, it's okay. You just, you know, wind it out by the yard, really, or by the meter. That's easy. The problem is when it's very raw, and I think the value of not having music is it keeps it very raw. It's very, you're right there. There are no violins in the back room. It's just as it is, life as it is. So when it does creep in, you can undervalue, you can undermine the reality that you've hoped to create. But on the other hand, there are just moments, and just towards the end of this film, there were moments when we thought, well, we just really need to make this bigger, make the sense of what is happening goes beyond this village. And that music can do that, I hope. But also music played a part in the church, you know, with the Thomas Tallis it was, I mean, the late medieval, 16th century composer, I think, church music, which is stunning. And just as a musical echo, the music is beautiful, and an echo of the beauty of the cathedral, and the impressive nature it has, and it encourages Yara to ask questions, to think, you know, about her situation and the situation of our country. So I think it can. I hope it can just do that. But I think if you can't create the emotions you want just by film, it's cheating just to put music in. I'm an old Puritan like that, really.
Is there a final question from somebody in the audience, maybe? Yeah, right here.
Yeah, okay. So it's just a very quick question and hopefully a short answer.
Okay, I'll take the hint. I'll take the hint.
Just because I want to make sure I didn't misunderstood you. Did the dog die actually, or?
Well, we are realists, you know. I mean,
so they actually died on the set.
No, I can reassure you.
Okay.
No, the dog didn't die.
Okay. Thanks.
In fact, the dog wasn't there that day at all. But we recreated Mara very effectively as a rather bloody corpse. And so no, the dog didn't die. The owner wouldn't have forgiven us if we killed his dog. No, she's alive and well and enjoying the walks. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah. There was one question here in front. I think somebody really wants. I don't know how far away
I'm on my way.
the dice is. Okay.
Where was the question?
Here in front, third row.
Can I throw it at you? Okay.
Hi, thank you very much for for listening to my question. As last question, I was just like, I am an amazing fan of your filmography, and I'm very happy that you're here. And my last question is, what is the movie that you made, or the film that you made, that you are most proud of, or that you have the most fondest memories of? Since you told us that this is probably the last movie that you'll make, I was very curious to see how you look back on your career and what the movies that you have the fondest memories of. Thank you.
That you see, the toughest question till last. Never look back. You can't do that. I mean, the cliche is that they're all your children. And the ones you feel most attached to are the ones that didn't do so well. Now
I'm definitely curious.
but I mean, really, I think anyone who's worked on a film, as I have and as we have, you remember the process. You remember the friends you make. You remember the mood of making it. You remember the story you tried to tell, and stories from the making, from way back. We did a film called Kess years ago in 1968. We still lingers on, and it was about a 14-year-old boy who trained a hawk, and we've exchanged Christmas cards every year since, and I think he's 69 now. And you make friends, and you keep the friends, and that's what you value, as well as the finished film. And you remember the people you worked with. I mean, great cameramen who taught me about, wonderful cameraman called Chris Menges who taught me about light and framing, and a great cameraman called Barry Ackroyd who I learned a lot about camera movement from, and Robbie Ryan, I was shot about the last 10 years or so, and a wonderful eye, and such a benign presence on the set, great sound recordist Ray Beckett, who's worked with for 40 years. Susanna Lenter does continuity, worked for 40 years. Jonathan Morris, editor, and again, you see, we've worked out a way of cutting where the camera, you cut when your eye would move if you were there, and that it maybe somebody directs a challenge at someone, and then you cut to see how they're going to respond, or maybe somebody interrupts, in which case you wait until they've interrupted, because that's when you look, and that's against the old traditional way of cutting, where I was taught you cut to someone just before they speak. Well, to me, that makes no sense. How do I know they're going to speak? And you give the game away. So it's just working things out like that out with great colleagues, great friends, and filmmaking. You do make friends, and if you stick. Well, as you say, you stick together. You eat together. You stick together. And we've all had enough bad location food to stick together. So those are the things you remember, individual scenes. I could reminisce for a long time, but it's late. But and can I just say, it's a huge privilege. I mean, to be able to make films. Cinema is a wonderful medium. I mean, it has everything. It has drama, it has stories, it has characters. You can examine people absolutely closely and intimately, just see who they are, I mean, like there was a woman called Jen who played the woman behind the bar, and she served behind bars, and there's just something in her face that is absolutely true to that woman. She's not playing a part; that's her, and that. Just being able to capture that sense of authenticity or you hope you have, is amazing, and in a way pays respect to people, ordinary people, and that's one thing we try to do. So you never go in that tight. You're invasive. You try to make films that have good manners. Funny thing to say, but the framing, the lighting, the editing is like good manners with people, which is, again, it's a funny thing to say, but I think that's what it is. You know, you're not invasive. Just allow them space, really, but not remote. And you don't put on a wide-angle lens, because that'll make them look less than human. So it's funny things like that, really. Anyway, real privilege. Try and hang on. Is this the last one?
Well, yes, I was just going to say that if you're ever in Belgium or in Ghent again, you'll be welcome here.
Okay.
I think everyone will agree.
Okay, can I just say before?
Sure.
It's been a real privilege for me too to come. Given the world we're in, again, another little quotation from an English writer. He said, "Join in the struggle where no man can fail. For whosoever liveth and dieth, yet his deeds will still prevail." And I think the earth is in such a perilous state that I hope we all do join in the struggle. And the immediate struggle is to save the people of Palestine. Thanks very much.
Thank you.